I'm Ronald Thwaites. I've been practicing law in Jamaica for over 50 years. And I'm happy to have these conversations with you about legal matters that concern everybody's lives, whether you live in Jamaica or you live abroad. Now, please remember, this is not a substitute for consulting your own lawyer if you have a particular issue or problem. Listen up.
What is a prenuptial agreement?
A prenuptial agreement is becoming more and more common, but it's a bit awkward because what it is a contract between two parties who are going to get married, but whose properties and whose assets and whose futures they wish to maintain a level of separateness or a level of different understanding. So sometimes it's appropriate, particularly if one of the parties has a previous family, or if they have some element of their business or their personal arrangements that are really unsuitable for the other party to participate in, then it's best if there is an initial agreement called a prenuptial agreement, which sets out what's going to happen with the properties and both past and future of the two parties to the marriage.
When is such an agreement appropriate?
When there is any lack of complete understanding between the parties as to the sharing of what they possess coming into the marriage or what they hope to acquire during the marriage. Very often a prenuptial agreement is awkward because it implies a lack of trust and a lack of sharing, a lack of jointure, which is, of course, the essence of the marriage union. But if it is going to provide clarity and fairness to the parties who are getting married and also those who are dependent on them or those who with whom they have other attachments, then it's a good thing to do.
Can it be changed?
Yes, you can change any contract by consent. Yes, so if the obligations in the prenuptial agreement say that, you know, the house that I got married to you, I was living in and owned, but really my previous wife had a share in it, and therefore you don't. A change would have to involve all the parties concerned, not the parties benefiting, but the parties who made the agreement. One side can't do it. As we say, one hand can't clap.
Does it supersede the law regarding child support or matrimonial property?
No. If you make a prenuptial agreement to absolve you from responsibility, for example, for persons who otherwise would be dependent on you, then you can't use that agreement to opt out from that responsibility. And there are some very clear instances of this, where there's an issue of child support. You have to make that very clear, and you can't say, I won't support because here's a subsequent agreement. And in terms of previous matrimonial property, because people have multiple marriages, often or sometimes, then those things have to be attended to. And having an agreement with another person cannot supersede your legal responsibilities in those areas.
Suppose the agreement is breached by one party. What can the aggrieved person do?
It's just like the situation in any other contract. If one party breaches the obligations that he or she have committed to, then it becomes a matter of law. And an obligation arises once you've signed it that you're going to keep to what you have promised. And it can be litigated, that is taken to court, if there is a breach in the prenuptial agreement, and either a restitution of whatever it is that was originally agreed, if that is possible, or a compensation of money. So it needs to be taken very seriously and must not be entered into capriciously.
How common are these arrangements in Jamaica?
Not very common. But when you think of the number of people who have later matrimonial contentions, maybe we should think of them as being as something that should be considered. The important thing is, and I'm going beyond the confines of legal advice now, marriage is such a sensitive, a wonderful bonding that material concerns, property issues really can get in the way of the unification of two people's lives. And therefore, the prenuptial agreement, if it is entered into, ought to be discussed dispassionately and ought to be eminently fair, not exploitative, one of the other.
Does a prenup apply if the parties are not legally married?
Any two persons in any situation can enter into a contract one with the other. And therefore, yes, you can have, if two persons decide that they're going to live together, many do, and that there are property ramifications, arrangements that are pre-existing or contemplated, shares in a company, a joint business, prior dependencies, whatever it is. Yes, they can be entered into, but it wouldn't strictly fall into the category of a prenuptial agreement, because prenuptial means pre-marriage.